People ask me how I managed Ironman training, full-time work, traveling for work, myself, friends, family, recovery, businesses, and all that, and also doing it in such a great time, my first experience. And the truth is, I didn't manage it perfectly. I kind of just learned to make it work throughout the 50 weeks of preparation. And like balance, it sounds nice, right? But there is no such thing as balance. Some weeks you will feel tired, some weeks you will train less, you will eat on the go, you will travel, and you maybe get ill or whatever it could be. And it's easy to feel like that you are falling a bit behind, but I kind of see that as a bit part of the game, and it's never gonna be perfect. The most important part about this is to be as consistent as you can over a long period. And what matters isn't perfect balance, it's consistent management, right? Managing your energy, workload, your expectations. And the goal isn't to feel great every single day, it's to stay in the game long enough to keep improving, right? You don't have to be 100%. You just have to be consistent enough to keep progressing and keep building over a long period of time, right? During my first Ironman prep, I averaged about 8 hours and 40 minutes of training every week. And although it's not huge, my recovery was still very poor. And I quickly found that sleep was my weakest link in this puzzle. Because my job was so unpredictable, I had to get my training done in the morning before work, because some days we ended up working later into the evening, so I needed to make sure I always got my training in before everything else. So I prioritized my training over my job, but also maybe my sleep. So I remember that like when working longer in the days and then I had some other stuff to do for my own business, I had a very hard time to wind down in the evening, and that ended up me being in a situation where I slept too little, maybe around 6 hours. And in some cases, 6 hours will still be okay, but the quality was not there. So I didn't get the recovery I needed. And now, when going into the next preparation in just a few weeks, I will focus a lot more on getting a good quality night of sleep, and that will make a huge difference on the recovery, both for my training but also for my overall like well-being, right? And I cannot always control of how many hours I get, but I am quite good in control of how good of a quality I get throughout those hours. And like 6 hours of deep restful sleep is far more worse than maybe 8 or 9 hours of light, restless sleep. And so therefore the focus will be a lot more on quality over the quantity part, and that is basically some form of mantra I've had also throughout my prep. With the quite low of training volume I've had to still be able to do a sub 10 first Ironman. And a friend once told me that instead of focusing on adding stuff to trying to improve the sleep, focus on what you're not doing. Like remove what harms your recovery and wind down routine, bright screens, eating too late in the evening, caffeine, alcohol, and stuff like that, and not necessarily replace them, but try to do something else. For me, that might be some light mobility work, like stretching or stuff like that, or maybe watching a geographical documentary on YouTube. It's still a screen, I know, but it will not like overstimulate my mind. But it could also be playing some chess. I do that on my phone. But it's still the screen, of course. But playing chess for me has become some form of wind down routine, and it really helps to just get my mind off everything else and just focusing on the chess play I'm playing at the moment. And like the last 10 years or so, I've always thought that reading before bed is what helps me to wind down, but I tend to always read some form of personal development books. and they always get me fired up in the brain, because then I start thinking about my goals, new ways of reaching my goals, and all that stuff, and that is not really helping to wind down. So I will not trying that anymore and just focusing on other stuff instead that might work, but not just sticking to one thing and hopefully that will make it work and solve the sleep quality issues. So focus will be to just removing stuff that harms the recovery and my wind down routine, and then just do something else. Could also be a brisk walk, right? So that is something really important that I will bring with me now into the next prep. And the next lesson I take with me from my last prep is more mobility and movement recovery work in a way. And that is something I didn't prioritize that much throughout my last prep, and something I need to prioritize a bit more. And for this prep, I will add about 10 minutes of some easy like mobility work every day. Could be in the morning, before or after a training session, or in the evening before bedtime as a form of wind down routine. And not just maybe focusing on like static stretching, but more dynamic work to keep my body fully functional and smooth, because of all the training I do. I need to keep it in a good state of health, and I really believe that some more dynamic stretching movements are a good way of keeping your body in check when you're training quite much. And also, when you have easier sessions in your training plan, let's say just easier zone 2, when the coach says you should be able to speak in these sessions, make sure you keep them that. Like they are there to be recovery sessions, to not harm your body too much, and they're they're not fillers because you need it. They are essential for the prep to keep the consistency high without harming your body, right? And they help a lot when, let's say, you're tired or you're traveling. And one big recommendation is that if you know you have a few days on the road, instead of doing hard intervals and stuff like that, maybe change them out to some lighter recovery runs instead, just to keep the movement going. You also are able to recover, because being on the road, especially if you work, maybe you have dinners with clients or colleagues or stuff like that, it takes a lot more energy than you think, and especially the traveling days. And for me, the day after I came home from a travel was usually the day I was the most tired, as after the travels when I've got home. So we learned that quite early on, so we always scheduled a very easy session the day after travel. And sometimes throughout my last season I sacrificed sleep to make sure I did my training, and I'm not sure that's the best way to prioritize. It may work sometimes, but it kind of caught up to me quite often throughout my prep, as like sleep is the biggest factor to your recovery, right? We all know that, but I didn't prioritize it good enough, and I need to make a change in that with this upcoming Ironman prep, that's for sure. Some weekends I was completely wrecked. Somehow I kind of see that as also part of the game when you have a lot going on, like you have a high demanding career, you are hunting down this Ironman, which is still a big accomplishment, and maybe you are building something on the side and trying to keep up with yourself and your family and whatever it could be. It it is hard to stay on top of the game, and you kind of have to accept that you will be tired, you will be wrecked, but you can try to put yourself in the best possible shoes, and sleep is for sure the biggest factor to that. So make sure to prioritize getting quality sleep, at least not necessarily 8, 9, 10 hours. If you don't sleep good, it will not benefit you by trying to force you to sleep more. So focus on the quality over the quantity. If you ignore recovery for too long, you will pay the price for that. And it could be as hard as like maybe you're not even able to train anymore. So big learning from my last Ironman prep, and something I really want you to um, take in and focus on and prioritize as well. And I remember especially like one time throughout my prep when I crashed, like the biggest crash in a way, mentally, or was feeling very drained of energy, was about 3 weeks before my Ironman. I had my last biggest training week of the block, and then going into 2 weeks of taper before the race. It was a week full of moving apartments, and like in my case, I've moved a few times over my life so far, and I always have more stuff than I think. So it takes a lot more energy and a lot more time than I kind of think it would. So that weekend, I remember on Saturday morning, I had a 4K swim. So I went to the lake to do my open water swim, but I canceled it after about 1K. I was not there and got home, took a shower, ate something, and then I was just laying in bed all day, slept throughout the night, and didn't train anymore that week. And I had a big run and also a big bike to do, but ended up skipping them both to recover. And that was the moment I realized I pushed this bit too far and I didn't prioritize myself and the recovery. And after a few days of good quality sleep, I was back on track again, and obviously quite in a good shape at race day anyway, as I still performed a good time. But you cannot down prioritize the recovery part of this. It's essential to perform great and to be able to do it over a long period of time. And like there is no perfect balance. Like you, in my case, you will never find it. And this whole like work life balance thing, I'm not sure it really exists anywhere. Like if you take on big things, you cannot expect to have 100% control over everything, and you just have to find a rhythm that works for you right now. You manage your energy, not perfection, right? And because you today will be a different you in a few weeks, you have to keep adjusting, trying new things and learning from those things, so you are always staying in check. And that to me is really what being a corporate athlete really means. Like you have to be disciplined enough to perform, but you also have to be self-aware enough to recover when you need to. So if you are trying to fit a Ironman prep with your full-time life, and you need help to not lose yourself, your job, your mind, your family, your life, or whatever it could be, I have created a corporate athlete community, and you will find that via the link down below. And in the community, you can get help with training plans month by month. So we stay in phase with each other. You have different levels, of course, depending on your situation today or your goals. And then you have the community aspect of it as well, to ask questions, to find like-minded people, to just find a group to be accountable with that are in somewhat of a similar situation as you. And in November, more specifically on November 3rd, I will start my prep towards a sub 9 Ironman in Copenhagen next summer. And I would love to have you alongside me and all the other athletes. So if you're interested, you have a link down below. You can join the community directly or schedule a call with me firstly to discuss it over and see if it's a great fit for you. And I hope to see you in there. If you have any questions or whatever it could be, you can leave me a comment down below or send me a DM on Instagram. That is totally fine as well. And then I will see you in the next one. So peace.